Good evening, everybody, and welcome. One of the saddest things to experience is unrequited love, where you love someone and they don't love you back. And this is the theme of many heartbreaking stories of the feeling of love that is not returned, not reciprocated. And when you're in that situation, you try everything. You try to be better, to love more, to change, to convince, to cajole. And it seems that sometimes it just doesn't work. That I was in love with you, but you weren't in love with me. And that's it. It just can't go anywhere further. However, an idea in Tanya seems to contradict that. In chapter 46, which we're going to delve into this evening, can you make someone love you? Is it possible to force love out of someone? If you love someone so much, can you get them to love you back? It seems from Tanya chapter 46, the answer is yes. That love can be inspired by love, and there is such a thing as reflective emotions, where an emotion that is given out is reflected back. And therefore, it would seem that all those heartbreaking stories were unnecessary, that you could get someone to love you because there is a technique, reflective emotion, where the love will be returned. So we're going to have to examine what this skill is, what this love is, how it's possible, when it's possible, and why doesn't it seem to work all the time. To explore that, we're going to delve into chapter 46 of Tanya. And we're going to also look at chapter 47 together, which is a continuation of the theme of chapter 46, reflective love, how it applies in God's love for us and our love for Him. And we'll also apply that to human situations as well. So, says Rabbi Zalman, another means to arouse love is to take to heart the meaning of the verse. As in water, a face reflects a face, so does one heart reflect another. Here he's suggesting that this is another method, after suggesting other methods in the previous chapters of arousing love, in this case love for God, that you're trying to inspire in yourself a love for God. You don't have it at the moment. You don't feel any love or passion or excitement for God, but you want to serve Him sincerely. And so while serving Him insincerely is also good, but it's not as good, so you want to be sincere about it, and for that you need to be passionate. To do a mitzvah with passion, with love, that's your intent. So you need to arouse that love. One way of doing this, another method, which Rabbi Zalman says is very realistic and obtainable by all of us, is to take to heart the meaning of the following verse. In the book of Proverbs, the wise King Solomon says, as in water, a face reflects a face, so does one heart reflect another. What's the wisdom in that saying of King Solomon? That just like when you look in the water, the face that you make is the face that you see back, so too, one heart reflects another. Meaning, on a very simple level, what does that mean? That a face reflects a face, a heart reflects a heart. So the feelings I have towards someone will be the feelings they have towards me. Right? Is that correct? Can that be correct? One heart reflects another. I mean, if we take this metaphor on face value, as it's being stated by the book of Proverbs, when you look at water, the face that looks back at you is the same face that you're looking at. Why is that? Why is it the same face? What have you done to make that face be the same as your face? Well, nothing. It's a reflection. I mean, it's your face. Like there's no other face it could be. There's no other option. Whatever face, if you make a funny face and you look in the mirror or you look in the water and you see a funny face, you can't criticize the funny face. I mean, that's your face. That's what you made. You created it. It's yours. It's not just a response, it's a reflection. So, too, one heart reflects another. Seemingly saying that the feelings that I have towards someone will be the feelings they have towards me in an automatic, reflexive way. Like that it couldn't be any other way. I mean, this seems puzzling. Is that the case? Is this our experience? There are several problems that we would have with this idea. One of them is, don't both have feelings? Don't both people have feelings? Unlike the reflection in the water, where there is no reflection in the water, there's nothing there, it's just me and a reflection of me. But in the case of a heart, there's another heart there that also has feelings, one way or the other. So how can my feelings be reflected in somebody else's feelings when they have feelings? Why aren't their feelings reflected in mine? Why should mine be reflected in theirs? Water is a passive non-existence. I mean, it's just a reflection, nothing more. But there's no face in the water except for my face. But when it comes to emotion, should my feelings be reflected in your feelings? You have your own feelings. So, what could possibly be meant here by saying it with a comparison to, just like water, a face reflects a face, so too does one heart reflect another. The comparison seems wrong. We do understand that there is such a thing as emotions that rub off on somebody else. We can understand that feelings towards somebody can have an impact on them, and the feelings can respond in kind. We understand that that's possible, but here it seems to be saying that that's like just a rule. That's the norm. It's just a law of nature. Like you're reflected in the water, so too your feelings are reflected in somebody else's heart. As if that automatically is going to happen and there couldn't be any other way. That's where it seems to be strange. To say that it can happen is one thing, but to say that it just happens just like that? And the implication here is that somehow this has to apply to our relationship with God as well. And so by contemplating this verse, by understanding it, we'll understand a way to arouse love for God in our own heart as well. How does that work exactly? So Rabbi Shneur Zalman explains a bit further. After quoting this verse, the likeness and features of the face with which you look into the water, that same identical face is reflected back to you from the water. Right? Which is what we understood. So indeed is the heart of one person who is loyal in affection for another. The same thing. For this love awakens a loving response in the heart of your friend also, cementing mutual love and loyalty for each other, especially as each sees the friend's love for him. Meaning, like we understood, that when you look in the water, it's your face that's reflected in the water. So too with the heart of one person, when you're loyal in affection to another, when you're loving to another person, when you're giving and generous of heart, so this awakens a loving response in the heart of the other person. Like there'll be mutual love. Why? Because you loved, so they'll love. Especially when each sees the friend's love for him, that it'll increase the love. Is Rabbi Shneur Zalman understanding this the same way as we understood it at first? Is there anything further in these words that we didn't see in the verse, in the metaphor that King Solomon gave us in Proverbs? Is he bringing out anything more that we didn't notice? Or is he stating it exactly as we thought? What do you think? Okay, so loyal in affection as opposed to?
Let's maybe contrast it with disingenuous feelings or...
Okay, so he's saying that the love has to be genuine. It has to be sincere. It has to be real.
And also that it has to be for the sake of the other person as opposed to like a selfish love, for example.
Okay, so it's love for another as opposed to a selfish love, which would be self-serving. It has to be true love that exudes to the other person. So that means that if I love someone and they don't love me back, it must be that I don't really love them, or I love them selfishly, or I love them insincerely. Because if I would love them sincerely, loyally, truly, then they would love me back, because a reflection is a reflection. Yeah? Is that right? Is that does that seem to be the case? It's hard to know. When we talk about love, as we've seen throughout Tanya, there's many, many layers of love, many different types of love, and many experiences of love. So what one person may feel is a total, beautiful, pure, sincere love may come out to be actually just a mirage. They thought they were being sincere, they thought it was real, but actually it was not. Maybe it was just self-serving or insincere after all. Certainly, many of us would say that we've experienced what we thought was love and then realized later that it wasn't. And so, maybe it's true. Maybe if it would be pure, sincere, and real, then it would really work and it would rebound back. And if it's not, then it's not. Which doesn't necessarily mean that it's a failing in us. Maybe we were loving the wrong person, and so therefore it wasn't pure. And that's why it wasn't rebounded to us. Maybe it was better that way. So perhaps the test to see if this rule works is, well, if it's pure love, it'll be requited, it'll be returned, it'll be reflected back. But if it's not, then not. Anything else we see from Rabbi Shneur Zalman's explanation here that we didn't see in the verse originally? He seems to be saying here as well, in the first sentence he said that the love has to come in a way of a loyal affection. In the second sentence, in the second paragraph, he says that this love awakens a loving response in the heart of your friend also, cementing mutual love and loyalty for each other. Cementing, like confirming, establishing mutual love and loyalty for each other. Suddenly it doesn't sound like it's inventing a love, that it's a new love that appears out of nowhere. Suddenly it's sounding like it's cementing a mutual love. It's establishing it in a permanent way, but it's been there already, that there was some trace of it before. Which is strange because in the metaphor, the person looked into the water, the face in the water was a reflection of them, but there was no face in the water before. There was no beginning of a face. It was just the person appeared, and that's when the reflection appeared. Whereas the emotions here, it seems to say that the heart will respond in love when there was some basis of love beforehand. It's now being cemented. Well, conditional, unconditional means is if it's for a reason or not.
So would that not be the cementing of mutual love?
What would be?
Conditional love could be the cementing, because Or maybe it's the other way around, conditional, unconditional love could be very cementing.
It's hard to tell. There's not really an indication here of whether it's conditional or unconditional. But it seems to be that there is some basis for it. It's not out of nowhere. It's not like somebody can force somebody else into love just because you decided. But what basis does there have to be then? And where was the love if it needed to be cemented in the first place? Also, what's this last phrase? Especially as each sees the friend's love for him. The word especially means that what we said until now applies, but it applies especially even more if the following. So, especially as each sees the friend's love. When you actually see the love that the other has for you, that especially will arouse in you a love for them. What was before? What was before the especially? We're saying especially when you see somebody, when you see the evidence of someone loving you, you're going to respond and love them back. Especially that. But if not that, then what was before making you love them? What could it mean? Well, what does it say? In the last phrase there, it's saying that seeing somebody loving you, seeing somebody do acts of love, display love towards you, seeing that, experiencing that will cause you to love them back. Before that, right, that you're not seeing, that they didn't display any love for you. And so what is making you love them? Their love. That's what it says. For this love awakens a loving response in the heart. The love awakens a response. Not the display of the love. Not the act of love. Not doing anything loving. Just the love itself will inspire love back. This is something new. That just loving someone without even telling them, not even displaying it, not even letting them know, that should inspire love. That is astounding. That means that if I really love somebody, I don't have to say anything to them, don't have to do anything for them. I just have to contain that love in my heart, and if it's pure, then they'll feel it and they'll respond to it. And therefore, if they don't, what does it mean? That the love wasn't pure. I mean, couldn't it mean that, like, I never spoke to them? Like, I never said anything? I never attempted to do anything nice? Or say anything nice, or have a conversation with them? Maybe that's why it didn't work out. It's just because the love wasn't pure. And even if I did express it, let's say I did display my love for someone, and they didn't respond with love, there also does it mean that it wasn't sincere? Couldn't it just mean that they're not up for it? They're not ready for it? They're not deserving of it, maybe? Or it's love, it's all nice, but we're not for each other. Like does love always have to be reciprocated? Even if it's pure? It still seems like a big stretch. So we need to piece this together and understand, what is Rabbi Shneur Zalman here suggesting in his explanation of the Proverbs? that just like there's a reflection of a face in the water, so too love in one heart will be reflected by somebody else's love. What does this actually mean? So to explore this idea, we're going to take a roundabout route. And we're going to explore yawning. It's an amazing thing that yawning seems to be contagious. Have you noticed this? We've all noticed this. That yawning is a contagious thing, that when one person yawns, others tend to yawn. In fact, no one needs to actually yawn. Even talking about yawning starts to inspire yawning. A picture of somebody yawning could also do it. Just thinking about yawning inspires a yawn. Now, where does this come from? And why? Why would it be? It seems like a very strange thing, because often you don't even realize the other person's yawning until you're in the middle of the yawning, and then you realized that you saw them yawn and that made you yawn. And that itself is very strange. And it could even be that you're not so exhaustively tired. It wouldn't be surprising if in a room late at night people are yawning because you're tired. But that it's synchronized yawning. That one starts and the other one goes. How does that happen? And it can be in the middle of the day or any time. When one yawns, somebody else yawns as well. Why does that happen? I'm sure you've wondered about it and maybe you've researched it. So I found an interesting article on this topic, an interesting article about yawning, and that was from National Geographic, that said the following. So-called contagious yawning is a type of psychological effect that happens only in response to seeing, hearing, or reading about yawning. So contagious yawning means you have to have noticed a yawn, and that yawn made you yawn. That's contagious yawning as opposed to spontaneous yawning. Spontaneous yawning is when you do your own yawn, uninspired by anybody else. It's just purely coming from the depth of your soul. So contagious yawning is where you see, hear, or read about yawning. Though there have been previous hints of a link between contagious yawning and empathy, new statistical models showed that the rate at which people yawned contagiously was highest in response to kin, then friends, then acquaintances, and lastly, strangers. In other words, we don't just catch anyone's yawn. We can catch anyone's yawn, but we're much more likely to catch a yawn from someone closer to us. That someone who's kin, who's actually family, we're much more likely to respond to their yawn with our own yawn. Friends, slightly less likely, acquaintances, and then strangers. So the contagious yawn, when you're, let's say, sitting on the bus or on the train, it's less likely that you're going to catch just the person across the cabin's yawn from as they yawn, you're going to yawn. But when you're sitting around with your family, it's much more likely. Which is strange. Why would that be? A yawn is a yawn. Why should my family's yawn be any different to a stranger's yawn? Why would I catch it from them and not from them? Why would that be more likely or less likely? Any theories?
Maybe you've got like an unspoken bond or emotional connection to your family rather than friends or strangers.
Yeah, that's what it seems. That it's based on the bond. You have a bond with your family more than with your friends, more than with acquaintances, more than with strangers. And so the yawn is somehow passing through that connection. And where the connection is closer, so then the yawn is more likely to pass through. That's what it seems to be saying. That there's an unspoken or even unconscious bond that you have that transports yawns, amongst other things possibly. And so when I'm around people I'm connected with, then we all yawn. A family that yawns together, that's how it seems to work. This is what this study is saying. So this was a newer study on this topic that seems to say that yawning and empathy are connected. Having empathy, feeling a sense of connection, that determines our yawning connection as well. The findings suggest that yawning is a form of empathizing with people experiencing a feeling, which, in the case of yawning, usually means stress, anxiety, boredom, or fatigue. One of those is the source of the yawn. And so I feel your feelings. The more I feel them, the more likely I will respond to your feelings by yawning myself. This is the important point, said the researcher. By reenacting the mechanism, it's like you share emotions. So your response is higher because you mirrored each other's emotions. This was said by the co-author of the study, Ivan Norskia, of the Natural History Museum at University of Pisa in Italy. So again, what did he say? This is the important point. By reenacting the mechanism is the yawning, right? Yawning is just a mechanism, and it's an expression of fatigue or stress or whatever it is that you're going through, or boredom. So by reenacting the mechanism, it's like you share emotions. You're the one bored. I'm actually not bored. But your boredom actually rebounds within me or resonates in me. I feel your boredom, and so therefore I share the mechanism of boredom, which is the yawn. So how likely is your yawn going to make me yawn? It will depend on how empathetic we are, how connected we are. If we're related, close relatives, so then your yawn is going to affect me because our emotions are more intertwined. And so the emotion you're going through is going to rebound onto me. I'm actually going to feel it and express it. I'm yawning even though I'm not the tired one or the bored one or the anxious or the stressed one. You are. But we're connected, so I start to feel it and I yawn. The expression he used, which just caught my eye, is that your response is high because you mirrored each other's emotions. That because we're connected, so your emotions were mirrored in mine, so I actually started to feel it. In other words, it's not the yawn that I caught, it's the emotion that I caught. And by catching the emotion, I go through the mechanism. But to catch the emotion, I have to have that connection with you. If I'm not connected to you, if you're just a stranger on the street yawning, it's not as much my problem, unless I'm a very empathetic person who catches everybody's emotions in the street, and then I'm yawning all over the place, which is a difficult existence. So that's what the author of the study is suggesting. Now, there was a critic of the study. However, Andrew Gallup, an evolutionary biologist at Princeton University, who has also studied yawning, pointed out a potential limitation in the new results. People may simply notice yawning more often in their loved ones and friends. For instance, people may be more attuned to the behaviors of people they know than those of, say, strangers on a train. Who says that I'm yawning because I'm connected to you? Maybe I'm noticing your yawn because I'm connected to you. What's the difference? What's he saying different to before? That it's not that the emotional connection causes the yawn. Yawning causes yawning. But I notice yawning of people I'm more emotionally connected to. When I'm sitting on a train, so the people around me are less in my vision. I notice them less. Not that I don't notice them, but I notice them less than the people who are intimately bound up with me in my life. So I notice what's going on with them much more who are close to me than those who are distant from me. So just like on the train, when somebody may be in a slightly bad mood, you're not necessarily going to notice that. But when somebody who you live with intimately is in a slightly bad mood, hopefully you'll notice that because you're more in tune with them. So too, when somebody on the train yawns, that yawning just doesn't register with me nearly as much as somebody who I care about yawns. I notice the yawn. But it's not the caring that causes the yawning, it's the yawning that causes the yawning. Just the yawning of somebody I don't care about is not so noticed, so I don't yawn with them. This is Andrew Gallup's opinion. It's almost a Talmudic debate now, that there's two opinions on what causes the yawning. Is it the emotional bond that causes the yawning? Or is it the yawning that causes the yawning, just the emotional bond causes the noticing of the yawning? Well, the co-author Noskia countered that a person may actually pay less attention to a family member's yawn. In fact, on the contrary, that no, your family member's yawn you pay less attention to. That's because a person's response to new stimuli is usually heightened, whereas a person's reaction to familiar stimuli might be reduced. So counters Noskia back to Gallup that you're saying that I'm going to notice my family members' yawns more than the stranger on the train. No. Those who are familiar with me, I notice less. Something that is more unusual, out of the ordinary, I notice more. So I should be noticing the stranger's yawns more than my family's yawns, and yet I'm yawning together with my family more than strangers. What must that mean? It's not how much you notice it, it's how connected you are. Convincing? Don't know about that one. You respond to new stimuli, you have a heightened response to a stranger's yawn. Sounds like a bit of a stretch. But anyway, however this debate goes, we can stay out of it. The agreement is that yawns are contagious, and that you yawn more together with people who you're closer with. And the question is exactly why. But either way, you yawn together with somebody who you have an emotional bond with. We're all going to test this now, from now on. It's going to be very hard for us to yawn without thinking about the yawn and looking around at who yawns with us. In fact, perhaps this is the new test, to see if we have a real emotional bond. Do you yawn with me? I can see it now. There's going to be relationships that are going to fall apart. You know, everything was going fine. We worked well together. We understood each other well. Got on very well. Had deep attraction. But he just never yawned with me. You know, I would just be yawning all on my own. And I vision myself, you know, into old age yawning alone. Anyway, what is this an example of what he described as mirroring someone's emotions? That when you have a bond with somebody, you come to mirror their emotions. You experience their emotions, and it's not just the yawning; it's the emotion that you're experiencing. Even that wasn't debated here. What was debated was what was the cause, the actual direct cause of the yawning. But the idea that our emotions are mirrored with each other, that is certainly true. But only somebody who you have a bond with, who you have a connection with already. If there's no connection there in the first place, so then it won't necessarily be reflected. The emotions won't necessarily be reflected. And this is what Rabbi Shneur Zalman is saying is the meaning of this verse when it says that like the face in the water is a reflection of your face, so too one heart reflects another heart. It's not saying that anybody's emotions can be reflected in anybody else's emotions. That would be crazy. What it is saying is that when there is an innate bond, when there is a connection there already, it may not be revealed love. But when there is a hidden love there, when there's the potential for it there already, so then one emotion that comes out will be reflected in the other emotion. One heart will reflect the other. But there already has to be something there to make that happen. There has to be a connection there. If there's no connection, then it won't be rebound. It won't be reflected. How do you see that in the metaphor? Because the metaphor that the book of Proverbs used was that like a face in the water reflects a face, so too one heart reflects another. It would seem from the metaphor that anyone can look into the water and be reflected, so too anyone can love anyone and the love will be reflected. But not exactly. You have to be looking into water to be reflected. You have to be looking into something that can reflect. There has to be a basis for the reflection there already. You can't just look anywhere and your face is reflected. You have to look into water and your face is reflected. So too the heart can only look into another heart when there's some openness, there's some connection there. When there's already a connection between the hearts, then the love will be requited, it will be returned. There will be a response. If there's no connection there in the first place, then it's a face not looking in the water, it's a face looking at a brick wall. And so therefore the purest of loves will not be returned because there's actually no bond, there's no connection. What that means is, in human relationships, if somebody feels a love which is sincere and pure and beautiful, and it's not returned, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that there's something missing in your love necessarily. It could very well be that there's something missing in the fundamentals of that relationship. It was never meant to be because there's no essential connection there. If the love if it's pure but it's not reflected, so then it just wasn't supposed to be. There's no basis for it. And as painful as it is to experience unrequited love, but that's better than love that's misplaced. To know that it's just not happening, it's not going anywhere, and so you have to pick up the pieces and move on, is much better than trying to continually stare into a brick wall to find your reflection. Because it's never going to come. That's why Rabbi Shneur Zalman said that what this reflection metaphor tells us is that when there is a love to build on, when there's a hidden love, it can be cemented, it can be developed, it can be brought to the fore. And in those cases, the love will be reflected even before it's been expressed. Especially when it's expressed, but even before then, the love will start to blossom even before it's been expressed. Because when you have a pure love for someone, and when there is a connection, there's a foundation for a relationship there already, so then that's all you need. And that will start to blossom. Certainly when it's displayed, it will flood. The love will come flooding in. But there has to be that connection there. What does that connection mean? It means either on a soul level, that these are souls that belong together. They are soulmates, and so therefore, when one displays love, the other one will respond because they're soulmates, that they belong together. Or it means that there is the correct foundations for a relationship. There are two people who are at the right stage, who are open to it, who are emotionally present, and who share the values and the goals that it takes to build a relationship together. And if they're not there because one person is just not up to it or not in the right place, so then the reflection won't happen. Yeah.
But why should it be the kind of love that you want? Like, it could be reflected and that person could feel love, but it's not, say, the love of a partner. So it might not be requited in the sense of what you wished the reflection to look like, but it might be present in another form.
Yeah, correct. And that's possible in many ways. It's possible that love is being reflected and you're not seeing it. You're not even appreciating the love that is being reflected, because it's a different language of love, a different expression of love. That's certainly true. And so in some circumstances, it's not a matter of saying there's no love being reflected, it's a matter of appreciating what is being reflected. Here we're only saying that if it's simply not, if there's just not love there, someone turns around and says, "You're very nice, I just don't love you."
But when someone says that, they're probably saying, "I don't love you like that."
Maybe.
Mostly.
Maybe. Yeah, it's also possible. So then you have to come to terms with the love that you're receiving and decide, is that okay or not? Yeah.
So love with Hashem. In the Shema we say, "V'ahavta et Hashem," we shall love God. And the Torah also says, "Ya'ahevcha Hashem okeha." So
Yeah.
Hashem also loves you, so there is a reciprocal.
Correct.
And it's a feeling that love is connected.
Correct. So we'll have to see how this connects to the love of God. Yeah. There's another question over here. Yeah.
About the distinction between the two, the concept of the soul. You said it was either on a soul level or it was two people who are at the right stage. Does that mean that on a soul level, if two souls come together, they'll automatically be on the right page, or does it require that?
What I meant was that the soulmate issue is a very broad and complicated one. There can be two people who are soulmates on some soul level, but one is not ready, or one is not in the right place at that particular time, and therefore their souls are readjusted, realigned to meet somebody else. And so at a certain time, at a certain point, maybe these two souls could have made it happen, but you can lose that. A person can lose that connection and therefore need to move on. And so if the souls align, so then there's a basis for love there, but both have to be ready as well. And so because we, as human beings, we don't see souls, we don't recognize souls. All we know is the personality that's in front of us, the person who we meet. So we can only judge a relationship based on the reality down here, not the soul reality. We don't have that information. So in retrospect, we can sometimes say that a relationship had a soul element to it, and there was something real there, but it wasn't meant to be because we were at different stages, and therefore the souls didn't align. On the other hand, you can meet somebody who you wouldn't have thought was your soulmate, but the fact is that you share goals and you share values, and you have that the bond is there, and that could mean that you have shifted into becoming soulmates. And so in a way, it's more important to look for that than the soul thing, because the soul thing we wouldn't recognize if it came up and introduced itself to us. We don't know what a soul mate looks like, but we know what a person is. So going back to Rabbi Shnei Zalman's point here in this chapter, that to arouse love for God, to contemplate this idea of reflective love, of the fact that just like when you look into the reflection in the water, the face that you show is reflected to you, so too the love that is showed by one heart to another is reflected back. But that only works when there's already a basis for love. When we contemplate the fact that our soul has a natural innate bond and a love towards God, it's there, it's just hidden. We don't live with it on its surface. We don't feel a passion for love constantly because we're a soul stuck in a body, stuck in this physical world with a lot of distractions and things vying for our attention. And so we don't always feel the love for God. But the love is there. And when we contemplate the fact that the love is a two-way thing, we have an innate love for God and God has a love for us, when we contemplate on God's love for us and how real that is, so then that will arouse automatically our love for Him. That will naturally come, our love for God, because it cannot not come. It's not possible for a pure love that's headed towards you from somebody with whom you do have a bond and a connection. It's not possible for you to not react. Just like that yawn is not, it's involuntary. It's not even, you're not even aware that you're yawning, and you may not even be aware that who yawned at you, but when there's a bond between the person yawning across the room, so then you start yawning. In a similar way, on a rather more sublime level, when the divine love becomes real to you, so then you cannot help but love back. And that love is, even when that love is not displayed, meaning even that when you don't sense it and feel it in an emotional way, but you know it's there, that love is constant. And we see that love in several ways. And this Rabbi Shneur Zalman is going to explain further. He says, this is back in Tanya, this is the meaning of the words we use in our blessings. When we say a bracha, a blessing, there's a certain formula that we always use. One of the phrases that we always say is that God, we describe Him as He who sanctified us with His commandments. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav. That God has sanctified us with His commandments. This phrase, has sanctified us with His commandments, is significant. I have here just as a sample the blessing that is made before blowing the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. We say, Baruch atah Hashem, we say, blessed are you, Lord, Elokeinu, our God, Melech haolam, King of the universe, Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, who sanctified us with His commandments, v'tzivanu lishmo kol shofar, and commanded us to hear the voice of the shofar. This is the beginning of this blessing, is the standard of all blessings that we make on any commandment, any mitzvah, whether it be lighting candles, putting up a mezuzah, blowing the shofar, or eating matzah. We start with the same formula. Specifically, we describe the commandment that God has sanctified us with His commandments. What does sanctified us mean? Made us holy. To sanctify something means to make it holy. God has made us holy with His commandments. So, what does that mean? That He sanctified us with His commandments. How has He made us holy with His commandments? What's made us holy? In what way have the commandments made us holy?
By following them, we create a connection or respond to a connection with somebody there.
Right, so by following the commandments, we are creating or enhancing a connection with God. So the sanctification of us happens through the commandments, through doing the commandments. And if someone didn't do the commandments, not sanctified. You didn't get sanctified. That's what it seems. But no, Rabbi Shneur Zalman says a far deeper understanding of this. He says that the word sanctified, kiddushanu, is from the word kiddushin, which means to be betrothed. And so you could translate the blessing, Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, that God has betrothed us, He's married us through His commandments. He's done an act of kiddushin. How does that translate into the commandments? Like one who betroths a wife that she may be united with him in a perfect bond, exactly so, and even more so, is the union of the divine soul that is occupied in Torah and commandments, and of the animal soul and their garments with the light of the Infinite One. That the bond that is caused through the commandments is similar or even deeper than the bond caused through getting married, where there's a oneness, a unity of souls that is created through the act of kiddushin, of betrothal, and of a marriage ceremony. So too, and in an even deeper way, the union that is created through Torah and the commandments of not just our divine soul, but even our animal soul, and the garments of our soul, they're all involved in the doing of the commandments. But what's interesting is that we make this blessing before doing the commandment, Because the very fact that God gave us the commandment is already an indication of the connection. That you don't marry somebody off the street. A marriage is not enacted with a stranger on the train just because you saw them yawn. There's a connection there. There has to be a bond already. And already, even before the marriage has been consummated, before it has been continued, before it has been developed, the actual betrothal itself is already connection, a bond, an eternal bond. The fact that God gave us commandments is already a bond. We already have a connection with Him, even before we've done it, even before we've performed the commandment, because the bond is already there. Just like when two people get married, the connection is there before they've lived their lives together, so too, when God betroths us, the connection is there even before we have done any mitzvah. By giving us the mitzvah, He's created a connection. So the blessing is saying, Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, God has sanctified us through His commandments. He's betrothed us through His commandments, through giving us His commandments, through the fact that He wants us to do something. It is such a mind-blowing thought that God has asked us to do something. That already means that God has actually put aside the entire universe and has asked me, can you just do this for me, please? That's unbelievable. Before I've done anything, before I've actually responded to the request, just the fact that I've been asked is an amazing honor. That already should inspire in me a sense of love, because what love did it take that God actually came down to ask me to do this? He's interested in what I'm doing. He's requiring from me to do something as if He needs me. He needs me to do something for Him? Well, obviously He does, because He just asked me to. And so the entire universe doesn't have to do this, but I do. This is amazing. That is love. That is a display of love. That is a display of a connection. And that connection is before I've even done it. And so the blessings that we say before doing a mitzvah, the idea of the blessing is to put us in the right frame of mind to then do the mitzvah. Right? There's making a blessing, then there's blowing the shofar. There's making the blessing, and then there's lighting the candles. These are different things. But the blessing is putting into words, it's stating the connection that exists before I've done anything. Merely the fact that God asked me to do it. And that is the display of love that God has showed me, which should then inspire within me a response of love to Him. That when I now do the mitzvah, I do it with love. Because who's asked me to do this? The King of Kings, God Himself. Which shows that there's a bond already. And where there's such a bond, a love that is displayed has to be requited. I have to respond with love. I cannot not love Him back. So this Rabbi Shneur Zalman is suggesting is a love, again, that we have already. It's already in there because our soul is connected to God. It's just a matter of switching on that light that He has displayed such love for us. How can we not respond? It's a reflection in the water. It cannot not be requited. It cannot not be reciprocated. And so this we have an opportunity of doing every time we do a mitzvah. Every time we do one of those commandments and make that blessing, we have the opportunity to contemplate the love that God had for us, that He cares what I'm about to do. He's requested me to do this. And that will inspire a love back to Him. Or he says a deeper meaning, an even deeper meaning of these words, who has sanctified us with His commandments. First we said sanctified means to betroth. But Tanya now suggested an even deeper meaning, and that is that he has raised us to the heights of supreme holiness, which is the holiness of the divine. Kedusha, holiness, is a term indicating being beyond, in that the Holy One, blessed be He, is beyond all worlds, and He cannot be contained within them. To sanctify us, what does it mean we're sanctified, we're holy? What does it mean to be holy? The word holy, what does it actually mean? To separate, right? Like in betrothal, to marry somebody means that there's an entire world out there. I just want to be married to you. That's what it means to be betrothed. The power of being married, of having somebody marry you, is that there's an entire universe out there. I just want to be with you. So I've separated you from the entire world to be mine, and I'll be yours. So therefore the word Kedusha, which is used for betrothal, means to be separated, to be in a category of your own, to be beyond. So Asher Kiddushanu b'mitzvotav means that He has given us holiness. He's made us holy. Sanctified us means He's made us holy. He's given us the experience of holiness. He is holy, and He's given it to us. Meaning, He's raised us to the heights of supreme holiness. When by asking us to do a mitzvah, by giving us that opportunity, He is saying, I want you to experience my holiness. I'm giving it to you. And so, just like God is beyond, He's beyond the limitations of the world. He's totally in a category of His own. We experience that by doing a mitzvah. We experience His holiness. This is a deeper understanding of betrothal, of what this betrothal is. That He's giving us of Him, of His holiness, that we should experience that. Just like He can't be contained in the world, so too when we accept the mitzvah, we're in a league of our own, completely beyond the world. What does that mean? Through the union of the soul and its absorption into the light of the Infinite One, it takes on somewhat of the identity of the divine, since they become one in reality. This is the meaning of the verse. You shall do all my commandments and be holy unto your God. I am the Lord your God. Meaning that through this mitzvah relationship that God has with us, that He's asked us to do things and then we respond and do it for Him, through that relationship, the soul becomes united with Him. As Tanya explained in earlier chapters, the idea of a mitzvah is that God has asked us to do something. It's His will. And what we're doing is His will. What it is actually doesn't matter. What the will is, what the mitzvah is, actually is irrelevant. What's relevant is that God asked us to do it. It's what He wants, and we're doing what He wants. At that moment, we are one with Him. There's a union that we have with Him, an experience of total oneness. And when we are in that state, we take on somewhat of the identity of the divine. Because what I'm doing is not what I would do. It's not something I decided. It's not my idea. I didn't think of lighting candles at this particular time, or wrapping leather around my arm, or blowing a ram's horn. It's not something I would have come up with. It's that God asked me to do this. And so at that moment, I'm one with Him. And therefore, I experience a little taste of the divine reality. For a moment, I'm outside of self, and I'm in His reality. So that's why the verse says, you shall do all the commandments and be holy unto God. Exactly the words, do the commandments and be holy unto God. Like when you're doing commandments, you're holy, you're experiencing His holiness, holy unto God. I am the Lord your God. I'm yours. I become yours. So when we contemplate this, that doing a mitzvah means becoming one with Him, experiencing His holiness. He becomes your God. He's yours. Not just I'm His, but He is yours. When you contemplate that awesome love that God has displayed by giving us this relationship, so then you cannot help but respond with love. Tanya says that when any person shows you such love, you'd respond that way. When you are a simple person and the king comes to you and shows you attention, then he's won you. That king, you're his. Here, it's the King of Kings, God himself, who needs you to do stuff for him, who has descended into your life because he wants you close to him. When you contemplate that, so then you have to respond with love. And a final thought, he says, this is a form of exodus from Egypt. Just like there was a historical exodus where the Jewish people left slavery and went into freedom, there's a spiritual exodus that we have to experience every day, an exodus from Egypt. What is that? This is why we read the biblical paragraph concerning the exodus from Egypt as a part of the Shema, the daily prayers, for they're actually the same thing. What is the Shema? The Shema is saying that God is one. We're proclaiming God's oneness, and we are entering into that oneness. We're one with him. When you realize that you're one with God, so then you leave your Egypt, your limitations, whatever's holding you down, the limitations of the body and the physical self, you enter into God's reality. And so every day we're supposed to meditate on this. When we say the Shema, to meditate on the idea that God is one, my soul is a part of his oneness, and so therefore the limitations of this world, the limitations of my body, of my life, of the things that are holding me down, they're actually not real. There's only God and there's nothing else. Nothing to limit it, nothing to hold him back. And I'm a part of his oneness. And through doing mitzvahs, I'm connected to his infinity. When you contemplate on that, so then you've left your Egypt. You're free, you transcend the boundaries. And the things that you thought you can't do, why not? And the things that were impossible, why should they be impossible? Because for God, nothing's impossible, and you're one with him. He's your God. Yours. Like a true deep relationship. So likewise, he says, at the end of the paragraph, referring to the exodus from Egypt, the third paragraph of the Shema, it concludes, I'm the Lord your God. Which is like a baffling thing. This is unbelievable. I'm the Lord your God. I'm yours. I've given myself to you. I've given the experience of my holiness, my divine reality, I've given that to you to be yours. At the end of the Shema, you can say that. After you've gone through the contemplation of the oneness of God and of all the commandments that we've accepted upon ourselves, then you can say that God is mine, that he's given himself to me. And so, just like God is unlimited, so too I'm unlimited. I'm not bound by my bodily self, by the restrictions and the small-mindedness of this world. Nothing is impossible anymore. So this is what's reflected, the divine love for us. When you think through that, so then you cannot help but loving him back and be passionate about doing good in this world. Because there's nothing else. There's nothing else but God and the goodness that he wants from us. And so suddenly, from a relationship with God that is mechanical, you do a mitzvah because you're supposed to, or you do good because it's the right thing to do and you feel bad not doing it, it becomes passionate. That you do good because there's nothing else, because God himself has asked me to do that. How can I not respond by lovingly doing good for him? Because he said that I'm yours, but I'm yours through that relationship. So, in conclusion, loving, like yawning, is contagious. God's love for us itself arouses a reflective love for him. Because he loves us, and because there's a bond there, so then that will arouse this reflective love. The very fact that he gave us commands means we matter to him. They are the wedding ring. That's the betrothal. He's asked us, before we've done anything. The fact that he's asked us means that there's a connection, there's a bond. It's us that he loves, and he's expressed that by giving us the commandments, which is the wedding ring, the betrothal. And when we contemplate that, already before we've done anything, there's a love, which will inspire the command, the mitzvah that we do, to be done with love. This reflective love actually gives us a divine taste. We transcend ourselves for a moment and can reach far beyond our body's limitations. Because when you become one with God, when that's who the relationship is with, so then suddenly that opens up all the possibilities. The divine reality becomes your reality. And so therefore the divine possibilities become your possibilities. Instead of the finite world that we inhabit through our body that has certain rules and limitations and not everything works out, when you're in tune with the divine, you're one with the divine, so then those limitations fall away. And all you want is to be connected to Him. And in such a relationship, you will not just be yawning together, but you'll be yearning for a deeper truth, a deeper reality, more goodness and holiness in the world, the experience of holiness down here that we can actually achieve because God has chosen us to do that. Okay. Any questions, statements?
Based on what you were saying before about the souls, like true soulmates.
Yeah.
Is it true to say that, like, if your soulmate is like on a different path as, you live your own life individually, right? And your soulmate is out there, right? Isn't it true that you would one day come together no matter what, like a yawn sort of being so contagious to like a loved one? Isn't it true that like a soulmate will attract to the other soulmate when it's ready or something like that?
Yes, correct. There's an idea that God spends a lot of time bringing soulmates together, that soulmates should meet each other. And so when one person is on the level and their soulmate is on the level, so that God will move mountains to make sure that they meet each other. But we still have free choice. A person still has free choice. And so therefore you can see it or not see it. You can reject it or you can just not answer the phone. We do have free choice. And so then it could be that one side was there and the other side just wasn't. And so that can shift. That can therefore shift, because in time, what was a soulmate at that particular point in time may not be there anymore later. Why should they be left waiting because you didn't answer the phone? So they move on, and then the soulmate thing gets adjusted, and they're given a different one, and you are too. And so then you have to move on from that and go to the next stage. But definitely, at any time when a person is ready and open for it, the opportunity will be there. But it's important to remember we have free choice. Yeah? Okay. We'll break there. God willing, next week we'll continue. I think we're going to be 2 more classes, if that's all right. Next week and the week after. Then the week after that is already Hanukkah. Actually, on the Monday night, we're going to have a concert here in the shul with Nadav, who's not here this evening, but and Feta Hendel, a band from Israel. So details of that will be coming out, and bookings open. That'll be Monday, 7th of December here in the shul.